Hola, muy buenas, bienvenidos. Simplemente daros la bienvenida y agradeceros a la gente de Zoom y a la gente de YouTube que veáis esta emisión de la caravana. Simplemente para explicaros la dinámica, primeramente habrá una entrevista que será conducida por Amal Ramsés, a nuestra invitada de hoy, Ilana Navaro. Posteriormente, una vez que termine la entrevista, daremos paso al turno de preguntas, de tal manera que la gente que estéis conectada por Zoom os iré dando paso según queráis ir haciendo las preguntas para que podáis trasladársela directamente a Ilana. También recordaros que en Zoom, si estáis en YouTube, podéis pasaros a Zoom si queréis escuchar la traducción simultánea al castellano, porque la entrevista será dirigida en inglés. Y ahora damos paso a Carlos, el director, para que nos introduzca al foro. Carlos, por favor.
Bueno, gracias, Íñigo. ¿Qué tal, Amal? ¿Qué tal, Ilana? Bueno, entramos en una faceta muy virtual. KCD ha hecho durante 9 años, junto con Amal, una caravana analógica donde nos podíamos ver, abrazar y tocar. En estos momentos estarías en Bilbao y seguramente las dos estaríais en Bilbao y seguramente estaríais contentas de ver vuestra película ver la película en el cine y Amal de regresar a Bilbao, porque siempre que viene come muy bien por aquí y se lo pasa bien con nosotros, ¿verdad, Amal? Espero, vamos.
Mucho.
Deciros que esta caravana, esta novena caravana, pues va a ser una caravana muy especial. Todas han sido muy especiales, pero esta en concreto abrimos un camino nuevo. Nos metemos en el mundo online, en el mundo virtual, pero esperamos algún día, como decía antes, poder volver a lo presencial. Vamos a ver, durante estos días podéis ver 8 obras, 8 películas. Vamos a ver 4 largometrajes, un mediometraje y un cortometraje de ficción. Y también vamos a poder ver un taller de vídeo que hicimos el año pasado con una realizadora vasca, con un grupo de 15 mujeres, que lo titulamos el taller de vídeo de mujeres revoltosas. Hicimos un taller sobre mujeres que se querían iniciar en el mundo audiovisual y que no tenían conocimiento de él todavía, ¿no? Fue un taller muy divertido, basado en los vídeos del minuto que durante años hemos hecho con Amal Ramsés. Y este año con María Espiru, una directora vasca de cine, pues lo hicimos de otra manera. Bienvenidas a este mundo virtual. Esperemos que disfrutar estos días de las películas, de las 8 películas. Esperamos disfrutar mucho de lo que nos puedas contar tú ahora, Ilana. Yo te adelanto ya que tu película me encantó. Yo soy de esas personas, además, que creo que es muy bueno rescatar la historia.
Oh, thank you.
Y sobre todo en estos momentos tan delicados, para que este tipo de cosas que nos están pasando no nos pasen, creo, o para saber por lo menos actuar ante ellas, es muy bueno mirar esa mirada hacia atrás. Y tu película no solamente es una mirada hacia atrás, sino es una mirada muy al presente, y para mí ha sido una carga de libertad y de imagen y libertad. Quiero darte las gracias por eso el buen rato que me has hecho pasar, y espero que la gente que la haya visto haya disfrutado tanto como he disfrutado yo con la peli. Y sin más, a la gente que estáis escuchando en Zoom, decir que durante estos días, de lunes a viernes, va a haber cada día una directora. Amal nos va a acompañar todos los días, y que tenéis estos 5 días para disfrutar de estas estupendas películas. Bienvenidas, bienvenidos a la novena caravana de Cine Invisible de Bilbao.
Shall I start? Yeah? Okay, at the beginning I would like to say hola a todos que nos están escuchando. Hello everyone. It's very strange to speak online with an audience which you don't see, right, Ilana?
Yes, very strange.
This is the first time for me, at least. So
Me too.
Before we start our conversation, I'd like to give a small presentation of your introduction. Ilana is originally from Istanbul, Turkey, and she studied sociology, I think in Istanbul, right?
No, in New York.
In New York, okay.
Right.
And you also were very connected with the alternative media of the African American community.
Yes.
And later you went to France, to Paris. Yeah. And you worked for a long time with Arte, making documentary films. You have also another documentary films on women issues, right?
Yes.
And my question maybe starts with your relation with the alternative media, with the African American community. You are Turkish,
yes.
living in New York. So
yes,
what is the origin of this kind of relation with the African American community?
Sometimes life decides for you. You don't really know, where, how to interpret it. Only later on you give meaning to these kind of things. Well, I don't know how life came with that. The meaning, I can only tell you the meaning of what I give to it, is that I also come from a small minority in Istanbul. It's a Jewish minority that's probably came from somewhere close to Bilbao, because we only know it from my last name, Navaro. And you cannot really be completely how to say it, you always carry the look of someone who is not necessarily seeing things the same way as the majority. From very young, you learn that. And issues related to minorities have always been interesting to me. But what brought me to African American communities is it was a job that I found related to media and social issues, because I wanted to work in relation to how media can change change society. When I was very young, I still believe that we could really change society. I still believe it somehow, but anyway, and somehow it got me into working in African American communities and Latino communities of New York. Bringing sort of social issue media to healthcare workers that were combating at the time with AIDS. So I was I was very much involved with African American filmmakers in New York and Latino filmmakers in New York, and the way they also did their own films and saw issues and everything. So that was sort of and I went through that before going back to Istanbul and then coming to Paris later on.
Okay. Normally, as when we see a film, we ask about the origin of the film. How did it came to your mind to make such a film?
Of course, yeah, that's a good question. I mean, it's been years that I've been working on issues related to identity, women, minorities in France. And Josephine Baker is a very is one of the major figures. It's practically the only Black woman in France who is venerated, because she can be African American, but she's French also, and because she did all her career in France. She's one of the most famous French people, we can say. She was in the French Resistance. I mean, she's really considered as a French heritage. And so the producer who was commissioned by Arte came to me and asked to do it. It seemed natural for me to work on it, because I was working on for many years about minorities in France. Minorities being mostly North African minorities from Morocco, from Algeria and Tunisia. Etc. So that sort of the project found me, and I wasn't unhappy to do something on Josephine Baker, even though she's a very controversial character. So I guess I needed, you need some maturity to understand, not to fall into the cliches about the character, I think. And so I was happy that it came to me.
Yeah, and really I congratulate you, because you didn't fall in this kind of cliche about the characters.
Yes, well, that was the whole point of making this film, because there have been many films made about her, and there were only repeating cliches, and she was sort of seen as a very vulgar figure because of all her dancing and all her style and everything. It was plenty of dust. The way she was seen was full of dust. I just sort of needed to take off the dust and see her in a different way, or see how she saw things for a change. How she saw France and how she saw the United States was also interesting. Not just how we saw her and what role, because people even don't know. Most people didn't know she was African American. They still think she's from French Caribbean, Martinique or Guadeloupe or something like that.
And do you think, as a woman filmmaker doing this film, maybe you didn't fall in this kind of cliche because you are a woman, or there are any other?
Possibly, I think so. Yeah, there is this. Definitely. There's also the fact that I'm not French and I didn't grow up with these cliches. I'm also a little bit of a stranger like her, like she was in France. So there is this part, and also that I am I also spent some time in the United States. But yes, definitely the fact that that it's a woman making a film on the perspective of a woman is definitely, it could not have been done by a man. I don't think so. I don't think so. Maybe I'm wrong, but there have been many men who made films about her, but it wasn't the same. No.
Yeah,
and it was actually very patronizing. The French film, because 10 years before me, there was another Arte film on her, and it was done by two men directors, and it was the way the film was done was like patronizing her and telling her, oh, like you couldn't even believe the narration was like, oh, Josephine, why do you have to do that? That's a bit silly, isn't it? Or things like that, you know. That was the narration. So just to tell you how repetitive it is until today.
And as a woman Turkish filmmaker, what was the most interesting aspect or side in Josephine Baker you found during the research, or maybe the most difficult? I don't know, because
well, what was difficult. It was difficult to find rooted look on her, you know, something that could justify my sensations or my intuitions, and so that took some time. And also what I wanted to do was challenging, because I wanted to really tell the story from her perspective, and she wrote many biographies, autobiographies, and she retold her life a lot, and it was not necessarily simple to find. Sometimes she was contradicting herself, so the one line that could be valid about it, you know, sometimes you don't know if she was saying the right thing on her childhood, on this book, on that book. That was hard, but apart from that, no, it was a pleasure. What was difficult, but it was how to tell the story about. In the beginning, I only had the idea that I could tell her story only with her own voice, with one voice, just with her story and her told by her. And it took me a long time to realize that it needed a second voice, because the film at the end has two women narrators. That her image was so much overwhelmingly overwhelming to her that she could not necessarily have a look on her that I needed to. She couldn't even put words on what was happening to her. So I needed that second perspective to put the words on how people saw her, because she couldn't. It wasn't sufficient. It wasn't as strong. So it took me a long time to find the look of people on her and her perspective. It still stays. I don't know how you felt it, but it still seems like it's a film when she tells her own story. But you don't. Sometimes people are surprised to say, "Oh, really? Did it have two narrations in the film?" I don't know if you felt that.
No, I felt it is as if it's her story. She tells her story, but also the other voice is the perspective of the filmmaker. And in a way, also, I needed this because not only from her point of view, the story is complete. not only
Exactly.
complete, also it's controversial. So I think
Exactly.
the other voice put emphasis on this controversial story or life, you know. So it's not black and white. So in a way, the other voice put it in such
Exactly.
yeah.
Yes,
And
but
yeah. Also, I wanted to ask you about the question of racism. Okay.
mhm.
So in that period of Josephine Baker, in a way, she was very welcome in France. Woman, black woman, dancer. She was very welcomed, and she
Yes,
felt like satisfied with this. In a way, not in a way. I think that the reality is different. So do you think if Josephine Baker would live now in our actual moment, she was going to receive the same
well, no,
welcome?
not at all. No, no, no. It was a particular moment in France, and she completely fit in at that particular moment. When nowadays you see people of color from France, especially Black people, moving out to America because it's easier for them there, or to the United Kingdom, one or the other. But it's and they're surprised that that African Americans came to France and they found it easy. Now, that being said, African Americans still, since Josephine days, have a sort of status in France that's very different from the other Black people, African people in France today. So still being said, I have African American friends here who will tell you themselves that when they're arrested by the police like everyone else, and when the police hears that they're Americans, then they're immediately, okay, great, so let them go. It's not the same way for Africans. So African Americans, somehow the French made an exception for African Americans when it comes to Black people. Yeah.
And how was the reaction of the French people watching a Black woman in this period, like
in the 1920s, you mean?
No, I mean in France, because now the reality is totally different with the
yes, well, they congratulate themselves still, saying, oh, you see, we've been always so much better than the United States. So in a way, the film sort of pampers their ego, we can say. But that's inevitable, because there's some part of truth to that. France has never been a segregated country like the United States. And when you really look at things from Josephine's point of view, you also understand why she cherishes France. You really do understand. It's nothing comparable to the United States. So let's give her the credit for that, and let's give the French also for if they want to think that they're better because of this. It's okay, but I still do think it questions them about the way Black people are seen, because there's also some criticism of France in the film, which I also was very careful to put. I don't know if you felt a criticism of France yourself,
not so
much, really.
No, in a way,
not even when you talk
about her life in France. So it's like wonderful life, and when she didn't feel the same in the United States when she came back, so she decided to went back to France. So in a way,
but still,
it's glorious, you know.
But you did see the images of the colonial exhibit and all the how the people had it, right?
No, of course.
So
also,
it does have that because of that.
No. Also, you can find even her success as an individual success. It doesn't, and I like this in the film, because even the testimonies you put in the film, they are talking about that she was not so much reflecting or representing the Black community even in United States, because she was very also like interested in her individual success, not in the situation of the Black community.
Yes, exactly. Well, that's also an issue. Yeah, I mean, you can't really be representing completely a community in a way, like who is entitled to do it. but she did it even if she didn't choose to, but obviously she was representing. But I'm surprised you didn't see the critique, because there was also even the man who was in the film, he was also critiquing really harshly the French, saying that everyone was fantasizing about the black savage at the time, and that was part of So there is a critique of that, and people did feel that in France, at least the audiences that I met. It was watched a lot. It did a big audience, and it was aired a lot. So I know people did watch it a lot. A lot of people know about it. So I think it's good, because I hope it contributes to, a context or some sort of a consciousness still.
Yeah.
Even now, I still hear, like, even in my son's school, her friends, some of the parents will say, like, every little girl who is black, or at least half black, at some in their scholarity, somebody will tell them, oh, you can, do you know how to sing? Well, if you can just sing, you'll be like Josephine Baker. Or if you know how to dance, you'll be like Josephine Baker. So she's a real figure. So, people do question these things, yeah.
Thank you very much. I think that we can join the audience, or if someone wants to ask questions, not to be very boring talking with each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hola, gracias chicas. Si queréis, algún espectador, tenéis la posibilidad de levantar la mano si queréis trasladar alguna pregunta a Ilana. ¿Algún interesado en hacer alguna pregunta? ¿Interesado, interesada por ahí? Tenéis en el panel de control de Zoom, tenéis en la parte de abajo una posibilidad de levantar la mano y ahí trasladar vuestra pregunta en directo a la directora. También podéis, si no queréis conectaros por cualquier razón, también podéis abrir el panel de preguntas de Zoom para poder ahí escribir vuestra pregunta si le queréis trasladar a Ilana también. Vale, ¿te parece mal? Igual, no sé si quisieras continuar un poquito más.
I have more questions,
Si alguien quiere trasladar alguna pregunta, yo aparezco de repente y te lo hago saber, ¿vale?
Ok,
vale, gracias.
Ilana, the archive in the film is really great.
Yeah.
So I would like to know, how did you manage to collect all of these archive, the question of the rights, the question of choosing which material you can use, or I'd like to know this kind of...
Well, we first established the biography of where she traveled a lot, because she was such a big star in the 1920s that everywhere she went, she created scandals, because also she was naked and she was dancing with all this banana skirt and all that. So we found a lot of material in other countries than in France, in the Netherlands, in Germany, in the US and everything. And we looked for those signs everywhere. So that was really the sort of an unknown archives that exists on her. But in fact, it somehow seems that the archives are amazing, is also because we tell the story on her perspective, but using the archive image. So when she looks at France in the 1920s, she can also see like all those crazy parties that they were making, like disguising themselves as if they were savages during the 1920s. You can also see them in a different way, from the perspective of a person who is Black and who sees that people are imitating her or what they think is her in a way that is a bit twisted. It can be racist, seen as racist today, but it is very perverse. but they were just having fun. And what's the meaning of that? And what are they trying to forget? And how are they using me? I'm talking as if I'm Josephine, to get there. And what's my role in their imagination or in their fantasies? So that gives a fresh look on the archives that maybe have been seen before, but in a different context, and you don't necessarily see it in the same way. So it's just a sort of inversion of gaze, an inversion of perspective that gives this impression of new archives, or archives that have not been seen before.
Okay.
I think.
Yeah. And do you think is it normal to screen this kind of films in Turkey? In your
well, it was in Istanbul.
Festival, like widely.
Widely, I don't know. In today's Turkey, I'd be surprised that they wouldn't put it on TV. Even in 20 years ago, they wouldn't have. It's too far from them, and they don't care so much. It's a particular,
maybe, or
but in festivals, for sure. In festivals, they're really curious, because it's also a way of looking at Turkey. In Turkish public, in Turkish public art it can be very intellectual in the circles that go to see the festivals, and they certainly have questioned themselves about the way celebrities sort of give sort of look on their own. This is, I think they can identify with this film for sure. I mean, that I got really good feedback from the Turkish.
I know that it was very well received in the festival in Documentarist, and you had a Q&A. But I mean, also the audience of Documentarist is they are intellectuals. So
yes.
I mean, in the television, Turkish television,
the Turkish television is another story.
Okay. As our television also.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, I think that we have a question.
We still don't have a question.
Yeah. Okay.
If we get one, I'll tell to you.
There is a question here. You have said you think nowadays this kind of.
Oh, yeah. Virginia is asking. Sorry. Yeah. If you, Amal, can please tell.
Yeah, but I also Ilana, can say
I can read a question that just came
in the chat. If you click chat, you will read the question.
Yeah, you said that today this type of celebrity. She's as famous as Beyonce is today. She used to be as famous as her. She and even Beyonce, when you look at her, she even did some dances that were inspired by the banana dance of Josephine. She really was sort of a first person. She was the first Black celebrity of the whole world, really, not just in France or the United States, but the whole world, really. So I think that's her particularity, because people were not used to see in the Europe, or in Europe at least, people really were not used to see Black celebrities at all, Black people at all, not even a celebrity. And she was a celebrity because she wasn't just a savage dancer. She really knew how to, she was wearing scandalous dresses and the most fantastic, glorious, I don't know, she was hanging out with the most prestigious people, and so she had she carries with her all this weight of everybody looking at her for very many different reasons. And what really was interesting to me is how she dealt with all the look on her, and how she pushed how she projected back the way she saw the people who were looking at her.
I think we have another question, right? We have here in the
let me see.
Questions, right?
Thanks a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
This is. Should I translate the? You have the translation. Do you see, Ilana, the question, the first one?
Question.
It's in Spanish, so I wonder if
okay,
Sarah
yeah, can you translate?
it?
Yes.
I mean, sorry, Matt, igual
It's in
Amal,
pure
la puedes
question and
introducir
answer
en castellano,
in the
ella tendrá la
bottom.
traducción en inglés.
¿Perdona?
Igual si puedes introducir la pregunta para la audiencia y ella tendrá la traducción directamente.
Okay, because they don't see the question. Okay. Congratulations for your work. Never I've heard about Josephine, and I'd like to know how Ilana interpreted the invisibility of the women in the history. As a Black woman.
Well, it's a.
So you hear just it was for the audience.
No, I can read a little bit of Spanish and I could interpret it. Well, well, it's you know, the invisibilization. It's not just by not showing the image. It can also be by the decredibilization. I don't know how you can say it, but it's by denigrating an image of a person. Is by showing her only in a banana dress and not in her most glorious chic dress, or by showing only when she says a stupid joke and not when she says something interesting. And more, au fur et à mesure, I don't know how to say it in English, but as time goes by and that sort of multiplies, the image that you get of that person is that she's somebody stupid and vulgar, and she just shows her breasts and nothing else, and there's nothing interesting about that person anyway to keep in a history book or in anything at all. So that's part of the process that happens to a lot of people a lot of women who come out as a particular, who just become not just a celebrity, just somebody who is a public figure. Decredibilization is I don't know how to say it in English actually, Sarah, if you can help me, but somebody who they you know, that's what media does to someone. I think that really what happened to Josephine, and in a way she managed with that, and she still did, and she was able to stay really she had a headline grabbing career, as they say in English. She managed that, not always to her advantage, but she people do still remember her. Now, if they don't remember her, if she's not known so much today in Spain, it's partly because of probably of that, is that she's just not she wasn't Ella Fitzgerald, that's true. She wasn't Billie Holiday. It wasn't with her art. Maybe her dancing remains for those who are curious. But still, that being said, she still is the first Black superstar in the whole planet, and her experience has opened the way through all of the others that came after her. The way she lived it was also what was one of the way we can look at the rest of how the others were able to manage their role in the world, their celebrity role in the world. She opened the way for them. That's the way I see it. And I think she does deserve the attention that the film gives to her.
Do we have more questions, Inigo?
No tenemos más preguntas de momento por ahora. Aquí,
okay. I would like to ask you about your if you are working on a new film or on a new
yes,
documentary.
I am working on a new film, but it's on a completely different subject. It's related to the history of China.
Okay.
But a big history. But I try to put as many women as I can, but it's not easy. The public women who are public figures in China are not that there are not that many of them, so I'm struggling a lot.
And your relation with the North African community in France, would you?
So that comes from that. Yeah, well, it comes from the same reasons as the African American thing, basically. Everywhere where people are seen as minorities, I identify with them. And apart from that, I was also, you know, there are a lot of Turkish people in France too, and French, and in France, I'm seeing as a Turkish immigrant.
Sorry, I didn't get the point again because I didn't hear well.
I said in France, I'm also seeing as a Turkish immigrant, so not very different from Moroccan or Tunisian. I could be, for them, is the same thing.
Okay.
So this is also the way people look at me.
Yeah. Okay. So in a way, you feel identified with this.
I do feel identified with anyone who has to deal with the major society's look on them, who is beyond their control.
Okay, I think we have another question from
in
Ira.
the Q&A. Yeah, I'm checking.
Should I translate? It's
yes, please.
Yeah. Could you translate it, please? You don't know Spanish. Okay. So no. Hello, everyone. Okay, I will say it in English, and Sarah would translate in Spanish. Okay.
Si quieres, Amal, puedes hacerlo al revés, leerla en castellano y ella lo escuchará en inglés.
Yes, exactly.
No, I mean for the audience, because
but the audience is also going to listen it in Spanish.
Okay. So
yeah.
Okay.
You can read it in Spanish, and Ilana is going to have the translation in English.
No, because it's written in English.
No, I have it in Spanish. We don't have the same question.
In Spanish. I have it in English.
Okay. I mean, I thought that you're gonna read the question of Joseba Villa.
Yeah, no, Josepa Villa.
No, I don't see the question of Joseba. I have Ira.
Maybe I can make it on my own. La puedo leer yo en castellano, si te parece.
¿El qué?
Okay.
La pregunta que traslada Joseba.
Okay, because I don't see it.
Ok, te la traslado, Ilana.
Ok, great.
Enhorabuena por la película. No solo por mostrarnos a Josephine, sino por la forma de hacerlo. A mí me ha llamado increíblemente la atención la vigencia de la historia. Una mujer enfrentándose a la crítica absoluta de su forma de ser, de actuar, de vivir. ¿No lo crees así?
Oh yes, definitely. It's very up to date. It's that's why I think the film is still so modern. It can be, it could have been. I mean, it could have been any star of today. That she raises ours. We're still dealing with the same issues, basically. But she was the first one, so that's why I think that she has a special look.
So now there is a question of Ira, right? Do you see it in the chat or not? Hello, everyone.
Hello, everyone.
Your wonderful interview. Okay.
Yeah.
So
in the last few years.
Yeah, please say it in English. So
okay, the question is in the last few years, thanks to the efforts of many people such as yourself, the question of representation in media has become an important topic in the media. However, some of these representations have been fairly criticized. So the question is, how do you approach a story that involves someone from a community ethnicity that isn't necessarily yours? Good question. Well, the question, I really ask myself, obviously, this question many times. But at the end of the day, I don't think that, well, I guess the same thing you can ask for any issue that has to do with women. Can only women make a film about women, or can also men make a film about women? And they're legitimate questions, and I completely understand them. But I wasn't in a position to refuse the offer. That's the first question. The first thing, I mean, I don't justify that my ethnicity, my only justification for making the film is that I feel like that I can identify with the character. Anyone could have found a personal reason to do so. And I can identify, but I didn't grow up in the America of segregation, and I'm not Black, and that doesn't necessarily make me the person that can understand best a situation of a Black woman in the 1920s in America and France, for sure. I don't know if there's an answer to that question, but I do feel a little bit, how to say, in between France and the United States compared to when it comes to these questions. In France, they're very much against identity politics in that way, in that they don't think that you have to be Black to talk about Black people, and it doesn't even matter if there's anyone in the crew that is not Black. It doesn't matter, because the issues are universal and everyone can talk about it. I don't completely share this view. I do think that we do need some media representation, even from the people who are making it, and or the people who are involved in the making it. So I try to give the interviewees in the film as much as possible a place. And most of our advisors were obviously African American, but and in the United States, they don't. This identity politics can become so sharp that that you don't even how to say it. There are some stations that won't even show the film because the director is not African American, and I think that's a little bit extreme. So I'm in between those two lines. I do think that there needs to be some attention to that, but I contrarily as to France, when I argue that, for example, the interviewees needed to be that I needed to have Black people in the interview, even my producer and even the channel didn't understand why. So just to say where the France is coming from, but I'm in between those lines. I don't know how to justify. I can't obviously identify completely with anyone, but I can have a place where you can look at things. I don't pretend to know, but I think that I can try to empathize. That's all I can do, obviously.
Okay, we have another questions.
Okay.
Yeah, from Larry.
In English, congratulations for the film. One of the things that amazed me after watching the film were the many facets of Josephine. Do you think people are aware of them, of how she took part in the war, for example? That's also a good question. Yeah, people do forget about her participation in the war, which is actually amazing, and it inspires me even now. Sometimes, you know, how to say it, it shows the great strength. She was very ill, actually, when I don't say everything in the documentary, but she was very ill during the war. She almost died, and she still found the courage to give around her the people who she protected, how to say, who were resistance with her. She always was the one that gave them the strength to continue to fight, and she's really amazing for that, I think. And all the concerts that she did on her own behalf, like how to say it, she didn't have a sponsor. Nobody asked her to go during the war from Morocco all the way to Syria, traveling through North Africa and Lebanon, to give concerts for the Allied forces. She did it all by herself because she believes that the Nazis needed to be destroyed. So yes, unfortunately, people don't know that much about that part.
Yeah, I would like to add something in this point, because yes, I think it was very strong point in the film, because Josephine Baker in your film is not a star. It's not only a star, but also she was committed politically to the resistance. And it was not, for me, it was good because it was not only information. You didn't present it as information, but as part of a very controversial character.
Yeah.
So, and also you reflect a very strong character, which also has to fight for her ideas. She's not only dancer. So really,
Exactly.
I congratulate you about, and also it was very good because it came a little bit late in the film, and it was not expectable.
Yeah,
So,
expected.
it was like
Yeah.
the star of the film, you know. It's like
yeah, it's true that well the way she changed, that's part of how she changed from that's why it's the story. The film is the story of an awakening, because there's an awakening about the way she is being looked at, to how she changes the world herself, how she becomes herself an active a common battle, from being a person, a single person, trying to fight to make herself a place in the world of celebrities. She turns into a person that fights for everyone. And that story is also in itself another story almost. Yeah.
I think Carlos joined us to say something, right? Yeah.
Bueno, pues sí, quería hacer dos cosas porque se va acercando la hora de cierre. Una de las cosas que te quería comentar, que espero, que además viene muy a propuesta con este tiempo que nos ha tocado vivir, que ojalá que esa profecía que decía Josephine, la profecía de la tribu, que genere, que siembre. Yo recuerdo cuando vi tu peli, me acordé de mi madre, porque mi madre me hablaba de esta mujer cuando adoptó esos 12 niños de diferentes. Mi madre era una mujer que siempre le ha gustado mucho escuchar la radio y la música, y se acordaba de esa mujer y de esos 12 niños, cada uno de un lugar, que generaban esa tribu de Josephine que proponía al resto del mundo, esa tribu que hoy en día tenemos un poco aquí, ¿no? Está Turquía, está el Cairo, no sé dónde sois las personas que estáis ahí detrás, como decía Mal, pero en este mundo diverso creo bueno, que esa tribu, esa profecía de la tribu de Josephine viene muy a cuento. Hay otra cosa que me gusta mucho al final de la película, cuando ella dice, o la narración dice, que me encanta, por cierto, esas dos narrativas de la peli, me encantan. Esas frases que dicen que al final de su vida, su lucha contra la injusticia, encontraba, bueno, que parecía que un mundo estaba listo para ese cambio. Ojalá que con estas realizaciones que hacéis vosotras, las directoras, y todo el mundo que hace cine para comunicación, para la transformación social, juntemos, logremos este cambio, ¿no? Y esta tribu, ¿no? Y hacer destacar esta tribu humana que hoy en día hace tanta falta. Ilana, solo me queda agradecerte mucho, decirle al público que tiene toda la semana para ver la peli, que no se la pierda, que además es una dosis de alegría la peli. O sea, me encanta ese viaje al pasado, como decía al principio, me encanta ese blanco y negro, nunca mejor dicho, me encanta también. Y solo me queda preguntarte si quieres contar algo más, porque ya vamos a presentar mañana, pero aprovecha que son tus minutos, di lo que quieras decir al público. Y esperamos verte en Bilbao. No sabemos que queda pendiente.
I wish I could see them.
Queda pendiente esa visita a Bilbao.
Oh, I really wish. I'm dying to come whenever you want. Yes, I wish I could see the audience. That's all I can say.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Ilana. It was really
Thank you, Emma.
a pleasure
Thank you.
with you. And really, we invite everyone to watch your beautiful film. We need it in such difficult times. We need to.
I know. It gives you some force. I know. Yeah. I should watch it again.
It's very joyful. It's about a strong woman made by a strong filmmaker. So nothing better than this.
Yeah, thank you. It's sweet. I'll remember that tonight.
Bueno. Entonces, Ilana, nos seguimos hablando, seguimos en contacto. Amal, tú y yo
Yes,
continuamos con el resto del equipo de KCD, que
absolutely.
espero que esté por ahí. Continuamos mañana y mañana tenemos también una invitada muy especial. Yo la conocí en el taller que diste tú, bueno, que participó hace 2 años, creo que fue en el Cairo, cuando ella estaba intentando acabar su película. Esta mujer, Dorothée Miriam, nos lleva mañana a Argelia, también por un tema muy diferente al de Josephine, pero también desconocido, que es la guerra de independencia del pueblo argelino contra la colonia francesa.
Otra
Muy,
vez.
muy interesante, nos va a llevar de viaje, entenderemos muchas cosas probablemente de Argelia de hoy en día, volvemos al pasado. Como le decía yo a Ilana al comenzar, a mí me gusta mucho la historia, es muy difícil entender cómo estamos viviendo ahora si no miramos para atrás, y yo creo que Miriam mañana nos va a llevar. Creo que también se van a sumar Asa de Túnez, ¿no? En el coloquio Amal,
Yes.
y nuestra amiga Miriam, que creo que está por ahí, que nos está escuchando también del Cairo. Hola Miriam, espero que os podáis sumar mañana y enriquezcamos todo este debate y esta riqueza, porque las pelis, yo lo decía también antes, las pelis, una directora o un director de cine puede tener un buen año y hacer una buena peli, pero lo que realmente es importante sois la gente que contáis historias. Tengáis buena suerte de hacer una buena peli o a veces tengáis peor suerte y, bueno, las musas no, o los musos no están siempre, ¿no? Pero las personas que hacéis cine tenéis que estar ahí siempre, que nos viene muy bien para avanzar y entender hacia dónde va este mundo, ¿no? Al público deciros que tenéis las películas toda la semana, aprovecharlas. El viernes desaparece, pero todavía de aquí al viernes podemos hacer muchísimas cosas. Aprovecharlas, disfrutarlas y aprovechar también este espacio, que ha sido una locura prepararlo, pero estamos muy orgullosos de él. Y aunque sea así en la distancia, podamos charlar con vosotras, las directoras, que insisto que sois la parte fundamental de esto. Las contadoras de historias que ha habido siempre tienen que seguir existiendo, haya o no haya cine, haya o no haya público, siempre tiene que haber contadores de historias. Es un poco como ese principito que vivía en ese planeta del Sol, que él tenía ganas de hablar y de contar. Pues mientras haya gente como vosotras, siempre habrá una esperanza para el cambio, como decía Josephine. Un abrazo, bienvenidas, bienvenidos a la 9ª caravana. Os esperamos mañana y las películas os están esperando ya. O sea que en cuanto apaguéis el Zoom, encender vuestras pantallas para ver estas películas. Besos, abrazos y nos vemos mañana. Y a ti te vemos en Bilbao.
Yes. Yes.
Chao.
Chao.
Bye.